So recently I was doing some benchmarking of my new Ryzen 9 7950X system that I had built not long ago. I was doing testing with only one CCD enabled on the CPU. Various sources that reported performance regression in some games due to latency issues related to Zen 3 and Zen 4 CPUs with two CCDs because of Windows 11 scheduler. Initially, it didn't post with one CCD enabled, so I asked my friend Mate Mitulescu, aka MeVini, for help. For those in Jensen's Kitchen server, you may know him as Leather Jacket Man. He told me, quote, try enabling one core, which I misinterpreted as disabling the other 15 cores of the 16-core 7950X, when he actually meant to enable one core in CCD1 and the other 8 in CCD0. But that's what gave me the idea to conduct the experiment I'm doing today, testing a 7950X with only one core. So on to the test system specs. Of course, we have the AMD Ryzen 9 7950X processor, which is a 16-core 32-thread monster that boosts up to 5.7 GHz on one core. It also has an MSRP of $700, though it's currently going for about $574 at the time of filming. I'll be using my Corsair H170i Elite Capelix AIO to cool this CPU. It's a 420mm beast of an AIO that should be able to tame the 7950X. Though it's probably overkill for this single core test anyway. Next up, we have this kit of Trident Z5 Neo DDR5 RAM from G-Skill. It is clocked at 6000 MHz at CL30-383096, pretty much the best RAM you can get for Zen 4. Next up, we have this TUF X670E Plus Wi-Fi motherboard from ASUS. As mentioned in its name, it's an X670E board, which means it features support for a Gen 5 M.2 drive and a Gen 5 GPU, though none of which exists today. As for the GPU, we have the GeForce RTX 4090 Gaming X Trio from MSI. This thing cost a whopping 2,785 Sing, whatever that is in USD. The garbage type market in Singapore combined with the shortage of 4090s worldwide are the cause of this. Anyway, this thing is pretty much the best GPU money can buy for now, and certainly is overkill for what we're doing today. All of this will be in the LAN-cooled 3 case from Lian Li. It's a very nice and spacious case with one of the best airflow for $50 cheaper than the Fractal Torrent MSRP to MSRP. I chose this because of its airflow and more importantly, the ability to fit at 420mm AIO while not being too big they won't fit on my trolley. That said, this thing weighs a whopping 16.7 kilograms without anything inside it. It's really heavy. For those who are interested, here are the full system specs for the test system used. Feel free to pause and take a look. Otherwise, let's get into the experiment. So, how do we go about disabling all but one core on our 7950X? We simply go to Advanced Mode, Advanced, AMD Overclocking, Manual CPU Overclocking, and then the CPU core count control. Here you can control different cores based on the CCD they're located in. 1 meaning enable and 0 meaning disable. So, I want to enable only the first core in CCD0, so on the CCD0 menu, I simply type 100000000, and on CCD1, I simply type 000000000, and then hit Apply Changes. Here I was met with a little bit of a problem. Whenever I modified the status of each core and hit the apply button to apply my changes and restart, my system would be stuck on the DRAM QLED no matter what. I would have to clear the CMOS manually by jumping the clear CMOS pins before modifying the core status, then hit apply to restart, then setting all my usual BIOS settings such as enabling AMD Expo and medium low to boost it. Other than that, it will work perfectly fine. Okay, so we managed to boot to the desktop. I didn't think that we'd go this far. I was thinking that the CPU would just refuse to boot because it only has one core enabled, but yeah. And the overall Windows experience isn't bad either. Like I can browse all my files without any noticeable slowdowns actually. It's as if nothing ever happened, like, wow. Not what I expected. And with that, let's get to some single core gaming. So let's start out easy. Counter-Strike Global Offensive. This game should be able to run on almost any potato. That is probably somewhat modern, I guess. Wow, I didn't expect it to run so well. It's like running at 570 FPS. That's like, I mean sure it's the menu, but like, it's only one core, and I wasn't even expecting this thing to boot in the first place. So, yeah. Alright, so we're in game and Well, it actually isn't too bad. It's pretty playable. On the overlay, we're reading about 180 to about 200 FPS somewhere. Yeah, so, and it's not even stuttering as well. There's a guy there. Please don't flank me, anyone. Got him. Oops. Please don't flank me. Oops, someone there. That totally wasn't just luck. So it seems like our CPU is hovering in the mid-60s in terms of utilization. So yeah, well, it actually isn't fully utilized. That's pretty surprising. So we're at a GPU bottleneck at 4K. I thought in CSGO it will always be a CPU bottleneck, no matter what, even in 4K. So yeah, we're now at about 245 FPS, 1% low of 160 around there. Pretty playable. The frame time's not bad either, it's just a smooth line at about 4.6 milliseconds. So yeah. Holy shit. Someone up there? Hear someone spawn. What? What? That guy must be cheating. 100%. Nice try knifing me.
It was at this moment that he knew. He f***ed up.
Oops. Finally, oh my god. I assume that was a friendly. Yeah. See? Okay, I'm 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7th place. Scored about 30 kills. I mean, not too bad. Oh, and I got a case as well. Not that I'm going to open it. Wow. When using one core, and with like half of my vision being blocked out because my phone is in front of the screen. So yeah, not too bad, I guess. So now, on to GTA 5. In terms of how it performs, it's mixed. On mid to high-end hardware, it should run perfectly fine, and pretty well in fact, but it's not the kind of game like CSGO or Half-Life 2 that it will run on any potato, you know? So yeah, I'm going to make use of the Warzone mod to start a war called the Battle of Paleto Bay, and yeah, it's going to be a war in Paleto Bay instead of using a GTA 5 built-in benchmark, because I find that, well, it's a little bit more realistic, I guess. You're going to be in active combat in GTA 5, and consistency, well, is gameplay really ever consistent? I don't know. Anyway, so let's just start the war, and I'm just going to spawn laser fighter jet, P996 laser, and so that we can carry out siege operations or suppression of enemy air defenses. So yeah, we're going to take down the air defenses, sea-whiz, missile batteries, etc. Yeah. So right off the bat, we're already at about 45 FPS, and it's a starry mess. It's like the complete opposite of GTA 5 actually. See a sea-whiz, And yeah, the CPU is completely pegged at 100%. Holy shit. All the seaway systems, they're just shooting my aircraft. It's located 1, and Patriot system, whatever GTA 5 calls that. The Patriot anti-aircraft system, I think that's what it's called. Something like that. So I'm going to clear the way for friendly aircraft to enter the airspace so that I can gain air superiority over the enemy. And I see Seaways bullets flying somewhere. It's behind me. And a missile battery somewhere as well. There it is. It's bomber. Ha! I could have gotten it. You wouldn't be able to do that without gotten it. Anyway, so while the average you may see is just 60 FPS, sounds playable, but it's really stuttery, and I dare say it's hardly playable or not playable at all. Actually, it's like if you're on the ground, if you're a ground team, which you pretty much will be. I mean, in GTA 5 single player, you wouldn't be in the air on a fighter jet. I think, as far as I know, yeah, there's no mission that would get you to use the laser. So yeah, I think if you're on the ground, it's going to be really hard to aim. Sure, GTA 5 is a spray and pray mechanism for shooting, but I don't think you'll be able to like shoot your enemies properly with this kind of stutter. Alright, they're done for. Helicopter. Like, look at that explosion. Some really bad stutters when you see explosions. Like, see, look at that. The boat just blew up, and the CPU didn't really like it. Okay, airplane is down for. So that's that then for GTA 5. Wow, just look at that cutscene. Just look at that cutscene. It's just so bad. Oh, by the way, we're at 4K max settings for all of the games that we've previously tested. It's running so bad. I'm just gonna skip this cutscene. Wow. I'm not very optimistic that this is gonna run properly. If it could barely manage, 3 FPS in cutscene. So, as the cutscene introduced, we're in Chongqing, China, and we're supposed to eliminate Imogen Royce and Hush. Yeah, that's his name. But we're not going to do that today, especially not with this sort of FPS. We're just here to walk around and test, see how well it runs or how poorly it runs. So, looking at the overlay, we're hovering at about 5 FPS now with constant stuttering. By 5 FPS, I'd say more like 1 frame per 5 seconds. Yeah. So it says that the CPU is pretty much pegged at 100%, and the GPU, I don't think that's really updating very well because of the stutters, but I think the GPU isn't doing very much. It's like 30%, the highest I saw it. The fans are at 0 RPM. This is really bad. What happens if I lower the settings to 1080p? I mean, if it's not a GPU bottleneck, it probably won't do much. But yeah, I mean, it's worth a try. So, gameplay, no, graphics. Let's try 1080p. Alright, so we're at 1080p and yeah, it isn't really running very much better. In fact, it seems like it's frozen. It's probably running worse than it was at 4K. The GPU is at 6%. Very nice. And fans are still spinning. Let me check. Yeah. Physically, on the card, the fans aren't spinning at all. So yeah. Single core gaming on a AAA title. It's not exactly gonna run very well. I can't get into the pause menu. You know what? Screw this. I reset the settings after I rename all the cores. Oh, never mind. I can do that now. Graphics. Did it crash? Oh, no. Screen. Yeah, what about DLSS? Oh. NVIDIA DLSS. Come on. I mean, the menu runs fine. 70 FPS. But the game, not so much. I mean, after all, DLSS is basically lowering the resolution and then upscaling it using AI tech back up to 4K or to whatever resolution you're using. So if at 1080p wasn't running well, I doubt it would run well with DLSS either. Come on. There we go. Yeah. That's inventory for you. Next up, Spider-Man Remastered. This game was just released on PC about a few months ago. It's pretty new. It's all new technologies like ray tracing and all, which I have enabled because unlike Hitman 3, which has its ray tracing broken, it's like 30 FPS and my GPU is barely used about 30%. The CPU wasn't the bottleneck, I'm pretty sure. So yeah, I'm going to turn on ray tracing and maybe that would take some load away from the CPU. Let's see. If it even runs, that is. Okay, that was a reasonable loading time actually. Let's swing around New York City. Oh, the input lag. The input lag is really bad. So we're hovering at about. Not now, Peter. We're using only one core and getting into a fight with only one core isn't really the best idea, I guess. Anyway. Sorry, I can't help. Spider Cop is off duty today. Anyway, we're hovering around 25 to 30 FPS, along with an absolutely horrible frame time of 75 milliseconds. Like, wow. I mean, at least it runs, right? Sort of. And it stutters less than Hitman 3. If that is an accomplishment, I don't know. Yeah. Frame time graph is all over the place. Hardly playable. It's similar to GTA 5, just with slightly more stutters. And yeah, you probably wouldn't get into a fight with this kind of gameplay. What happens if we disable ray tracing now? Does that impact anything? ray tracing, some graphics. Okay. Okay, we got a slightly higher average FPS, but still not very playable. So, both threads on the single core 7950X are pegged at 100%, boosting about 5.45 to 5.475 megahertz. I mean gigahertz, sorry, not 5 megahertz. But yeah, covering about 68 degrees. Oh, that's still pretty hot for one core though. And for a GPU, it's barely being used, from 25% to 60%, and the temps are like 43 degrees. By the way, we're in about a 25-degree ambient. I have the air conditioner on. So yeah, it's running pretty cool. And I mean, well, the GPU fans is turned on for some reason. This GPU supports 0 RPM. Yeah. GPU is consuming about 100 watts. And it's clocking only about 1.77 gigahertz to 1.8. It just dropped down to 1.3. So yeah, the GPU is just sitting there doing nothing, while the CPU is having a real tough time. So yeah, that's it for Spider-Man. So now we have Cyberpunk 2077. It's running pretty well in the menu. I mean at this menu, I guess 180 FPS. But considering that it didn't run very well, to say the least, in Hitman 3, I doubt it actually run any better in Cyberpunk in actual gameplay. So on Cyberpunk, I have 4K Ultra. Let's just set it to Steam. 4K Ultra with DLSS off. What's this? FSR? Something really FSR? Disable all of this. Motion blur sucks. And with ray tracing at Ultra. Let's see what it's like, if it even runs. So it's been on this black screen for about 10 minutes now, and I don't think it's going anywhere. But then, realistically, what could you expect from a single core CPU, or a CPU with all but one core disabled on Cyberpunk 2077? So, yeah, I mean, okay. I was hoping we'd at least somewhat load in game and have like 1 frame per minute. Yeah, but Before I get to the benchmarks, Mate also wanted to add his results in some of the games that he tested on the benchmark charts. So this is his test system. It has a Core i5-4590 with a base clock overclock of 104 MHz, paired with an ASRock Z97 anniversary board and a Radeon RX 6600 XT. It also features a pair of Kingston HyperX Black DDR3 RAM clocked at DDR3 1664 at CL99927, and sports a Nike shoebox acting as an open bench table. This is what it looks like for those who are curious. Beautiful, ain't it? Now, let's compare the results we just got to stock, and oh boy, that isn't a very good start. In Counter-Strike Global Offensive, while we had a playable experience, when comparing it to the stock results, it is a bloodbath. The one-core configuration was 120% slower than stock, with the average even being nearly 43% slower than the 1% low of the stock result. The i5-4590 system was around 38% slower in average and 41% slower in the 1% low compared to the one-core configuration. The 4590 has 4 cores and 4 threads with no hyperthreading, but it's amazing to see how far we've come, with modern single cores beating out a quad core from just 8 years ago. Next up, we have Grand Theft Auto 5. On paper, we actually have a pretty playable looking average, but in reality it was a stuttery mess, shown by a 1% low of 3 FPS. The one-core configuration was 54% slower than stock in average FPS, and even 13% slower on average FPS compared to the stock 1% low. That also made the 4590 system slower than the one-core configuration by 87% in terms of average frame rate. but it has the benefit of being playable, in the sense that it wasn't stuttering as much, seen by the stronger 1% low, which outdid the one-core configuration by 330%. Moving on to Hitman 3, and it's really bad. The one-core configuration managed 37 FPS compared to the stock's 178. That makes it a whopping 381% slower than the stock in average, and even 262% slower comparing average to stock 1% low. Speaking of the 1% low, well, let's not talk about that. Even with ray tracing on, which is broken in Hitman 3 since it does not want to use more than 40% of my GPU during testing, the stock configuration managed to be 16% faster than the one-core configuration in the average FPS. Truly a disaster. Now, on to Spider-Man Remastered. Again, a very poor result compared to stock, with the one-core configuration managing only 29 FPS average, making it 183% slower than stock. With ray tracing off, the one-core configuration managed 4 FPS more than with ray tracing on, a solid 14% uplift, but still trailing the stock result with ray tracing on by 148%. Lastly, we have Cyberpunk 2077. The one-core configuration managed a whopping 0 FPS average because, well, it didn't run. That makes both the 1% low and average of the stock configuration infinitely faster than the one-core configuration. Like, literally. Because anything divided by 0 is infinity. Get it? So, should you use a 7950X with only one core enabled? Well, of course not. As a reminder, this is a $700 CPU with 16 sweet Zen 4 cores, so I can't imagine anyone in the market for this CPU who will want to disable all but one core. That being said, especially in CSGO, the results were actually better than expected, with me being able to actually play with over 100 FPS with minimal stuttering. Of course, this is a far cry from what the actual result would be if I had 16 cores enabled, but yeah, it was playable. I was surprised that it would even let me to the desktop. With that, that's the end of a pretty pointless video. Let me know if you like this new style videos or not in the comments, as well as how I can improve in making better quality videos. Thank you so much for watching.